9 o'clock.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -6, Smiths Falls, -5. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa police are prepared to step up enforcement as demonstrators remain camped out around Parliament Hill, disrupting the downtown flow. Here's City News reporter Laura Carney.
Ottawa Police Chief Peter Slowly says police action alone may not be enough to end the ongoing and potentially resurging anti-vaccine mandate protest.
We are escalating our actions, including enforcement. We're going to do so without unnecessarily escalating greater public safety risks. We do not want riots, but all options remain on the table.
One of those options could be to call in the military. However, in a statement to the Toronto Star, the Office of the Defence Minister says there are no plans for the Canadian Armed Forces to get involved.
Residents have been the victims of intense noise, threatening behavior, hateful vitriol that has no place in our city or anywhere in our country.
Convoy organizers say they plan to remain in the capital for as long as it takes for governments across the country to end all mandates associated with COVID-19. And Ottawa police say they are preparing for more protesters to return to Parliament Hill this weekend, including a possible counter-protest. Laura Carney, City News.
City News time, 9:01. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We may collect a couple of more centimeters of snow, but the bulk of the second wave will stay south of our area. We've already reached our high for the day as well. Say goodbye to the mild air. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about -9. Scattered flurries tonight, -18 will feel like -29. And for tomorrow, mainly cloudy, the high just -12. For today, I already reached the high for the day. For the afternoon, -9.
And right now, feeling colder in the wind. It's -6 in Ottawa, -5 in Smiths Falls. Now, a small group of protesters did gather at police headquarters on Elgin last night once again. The group upset with what they see as a lack of action to put a stop to the protest. Signs included, "What are you are not doing, or you are doing your job too slowly," a play on the chief's name. For his part, the police chief, Peter Slowly, says it is a volatile situation that requires OPS to escalate enforcement without imposing any risk to the public. The chief says all options remain on the table and discussions are ongoing with 3 levels of government. Now, as this convoy is in its 6th day around the downtown area, another convoy of tractors this time being planned from Alexandria into the city this weekend. That's to show support. They're organizing themselves on Facebook, the group called Farmer Convoy to Ottawa 2.0. One of the organizers tells Post Media it will likely see 100 or so participate on Saturday. Some are coming from places like St. Isidore, also Winchester and Kemptville. Ottawa police have released pictures of a woman in the investigation of the desecration of the War Memorial. You can view her picture at ottawa.citynews.ca. It was last Saturday someone was seen dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Now, police are looking to identify the woman in the picture. Anyone with information is asked to contact Ottawa Police. City News time, 9:03. Ottawa's Rachel Holman and Alberta's John Morris have evened their record at the Olympic mixed curling event today. After dropping the opening game to Great Britain, they posted a 7-6 win over Norway. The federal government has revived a bill that subjects Netflix and other streaming companies to the same rules as traditional Canadian broadcasters. The Online Streaming Act would force web companies to offer a set amount of Canadian content and to invest as well in Canada's cultural industries, including film, TV, and music. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, good morning, Ottawa. Yes, I usually start on a happy note. Derick Fage here, by the way, filling in for Rob Snow. Rob is off today and tomorrow. We just said, so on my way to City News, whether it be filling in for Rob or filling in for Sam LaPrade, I always try to think of something positive, okay? I like to begin the show with perhaps something on the light side of the news, share some personal experience maybe. I couldn't do that this morning because I'm pissed off. I'm disappointed, I'm upset, I'm disgusted. I'm worried about the direction this country is going, especially politically. I'm going to share some thoughts with you. And these are my opinions. Guess what? The government has not paid this media conglomerate for us to share opinions that fit with their values all the time. You know, I get to have an opinion. So does Rob. So does Sam. So does everybody. You know, so do the people that we have on the show, like you, the listener, like experts, like politicians of all stripes. So let me share mine, if you'll indulge me, okay? I'm going to start off with my thoughts on the so-called Freedom Convoy, okay? And let me be clear. I am not suggesting that everyone who has joined this protest feel the same way that many, if not most, of the organizers do. However, they have decided to join a protest organized by the likes of people like Pat King. Hell, I know some people have joined this protest. I saw that some former high school friends made the trip. These people are pot-smoking, tree-hugging, people who are opposed to vaccine mandates for whatever reason, okay? But they didn't do their homework. They didn't bother ensuring that the people that they are now supporting share the same values as they do. That's important. Getting back to Pat King, one of the key organizers, one of the leaders of this group, he's listed on the Convoy Organization's webpage as a regional organizer. He's controlling one of the so-called command centers and directing truckers as what the schedule is each day. And by the way, you know, like, Derick, where is this coming from? The videos are available online. Do some damn homework. Get off your ass. Do a little research. It's not difficult. Here's some quotes from Pat King. Quotes you can easily, again, find online. It's not fake news. There's Pat in the video. Here's an end to public health measures may be only achieved with bullets. In another video, King advises his followers to stage large gatherings in defiance of public health guidelines, and should they be reported by their neighbors, he is heard in the video saying those people need to be shot. In another video, he claims Muslims have a plan for Anglo-Saxon replacement to flood Canada with refugees and subvert Canada's education system. King has said that the Holocaust was not the 6 million people it was said to be. Need I go on? And by the way, the videos of him at the command center are also available online. You can go on to it. You can find them, okay? I watched some of these videos. This guy is giggling like some kind of 10-year-old kid about toilet papering his neighbor's house. He's laughing at the entire situation. How do I know? Because I did some damn research. You are associating yourself with this person. If the organizers were here for a peaceful protest and they sincerely wanted to be heard, wanted some respect, wanted the ear of politicians, then they should have told people like Pat King that they weren't welcome. As a large group, they should have approached each person displaying a swastika, each person displaying the Confederate flag, each person associated with far-right racist organizations, each person pissing on the war memorial, dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier, berating local residents, each person with a flag or a truck with the words F Trudeau, to get the hell out of here. We don't support you, we don't want you, we don't need you here because we want to be taken seriously. But they didn't, because they do want them here, and they don't want to be taken seriously, obviously. Okay, as for the political side of all this, it's been an absolute failure by every party at every level of government. Let's begin with members of the Conservative Party meeting. They're handing out donuts, having photos taken with them, talking about what a wonderful group of peaceful people they are. Again, yes, there are plenty of peaceful people gathering on Parliament Hill to share their frustration with vaccine mandates and lockdowns and the like. But do your homework and realize who and what you are associating yourself with. The Conservative Party doesn't appear to care, and I fear with the ousting of Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, which of course we're going to discuss throughout the show, that the support for the protest from the Conservative Party is only going to grow. Oh, what about the Liberals, Derick? Why don't you say something about the Liberals? Well, let me do that then. Let's turn our attention to the Liberals and Justin Trudeau, who certainly seems like he did some homework. However, he decided long ago that he would divide the country immediately by stating that anyone who didn't get a vaccine was the enemy. That is not leadership. It's not. Leadership takes patience. It takes understanding. Leadership is listening and then helping educate those who are scared, who don't trust the government, who question how quickly it took to produce the vaccines. A leader does not immediately divide a country. A leader does their homework, understands that the organizers of this protest are not people you want to associate yourself with, and sit down and have a coffee. However, you need to tell people who are there, who don't understand the association with some of the things I mentioned above, such as Pat King's disturbing opinions, such as Confederate flags, swastikas, and intimidation, that you hear them, that you understand the sacrifices people have made to make with lockdowns and job losses and losing your business and the effects on their mental health and the pandemic fatigue you're experiencing. Tell them you want to help. Tell them you tell them to take a moment and look around and decide if these are the people speaking on your behalf. It's not a hard thing to do. You don't make division right away. You don't suggest that everybody there is racist and misogynist and so on. You say that those people are a part of it, and to take a moment and do some damn homework. Listen, I think we're about to go down a frightening political path. The majority, this is what I believe, the majority of Canadians are centrists at heart. They believe in social programs, and they believe in being fiscally responsible. The Conservatives are about to go to the political right away from the majority of Canada's centrist beliefs. They're about to head further right because they see this swell of support by a minority, and they fear they're going to lose votes to who? The People's Party of Canada. Led by what I believe to be someone who is completely unhinged. And never mind the far right. Unhinged groups. Focus your attention on stealing votes from the Liberals. Stay the centrist course. You're getting rid of O'Toole because he's coming too much to the center. Are you nuts? Are you crazy? Never mind those people. You want the votes from the Liberals. You don't need the votes from the People's Party of Canada. Well, what about the Liberals, Derick? No one ever talks about the Liberals. Maybe you're in the pocket of the Liberal. Maybe here's what I think about the Liberal. They're bending over backwards themselves, moving to the left, hoping to make the NDP irrelevant. The Liberals can't ignore things like the importance of Canada's oil industry to the country's economy. You just can't pull the plug on it and hope we begin to move away from a society that relies on oil and gas. Stop just saying it and do something. This is what I'm asking you. Where is the infrastructure that will allow these working in the oil and gas industry to begin a transition to a new, greener, more sustainable industry? It's not there. Forget about the NDP. And find the right balance between climate initiatives and not alienating not only an entire industry, but provinces that rely on it. It's pretty simple. It's called leadership. Listen, we're getting dangerously close to becoming a two-party nation like the United States. Right? Because you've now got the Conservatives that are trying to steal from the People's Party of Canada, and then you've got the Liberals that have already pretty much stolen most of the NDP's mandate, certainly the Green Party's mandate, around climate change. Right? You're going to have a country divided. A country with so much division politically that there's no longer an appetite to work together during the most difficult times, such as, guess what? A global pandemic. All right. I'm exhausted. I don't even know if I can continue on. What do we got? Another 2 hours and 45 minutes? This is nuts. Oh, by the way, in other news, Manitoba MP Candice Bergen has been elected as the interim leader of the Conservative Party after the removal of Aaron O'Toole. The selection of Bergen came hours after O'Toole was ousted from the leadership role with 73 MPs voting to remove him and just 45 lining up in his support. Like, I know you're exhausted. And for those of you living downtown, I feel so bad. I live in Vanya. I can faintly hear the horns at night. It doesn't bother me at all. I can't even imagine what's happening down there. And, I'm not going to contribute to giving any more attention to one specific MPP who's just completely been unhinged for a long time now, down there supporting the truckers. Listen, if you are part of this protest and you're down there right now and you don't believe in swastikas and Confederate flags and pissing on the war memorial and dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier and associating yourselves with far-right extremists, if you don't, how childish is it to show up with flags that say F Trudeau and a truck that say, how much money did you spend on bloody paraphernalia to come down here like you're some goddamn 10-year-old that's cheesed off at his neighbor for biting him on the playground? I mean, it's just insane what's happening. Anyway, that's my rant. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow, right here on the Rob Snow Show. Tune in. Coming up next, Randall Denley joining us on the show. And guess what? He's fired up, too. I can't wait to speak to Randall because he's got some great points to make in his latest article in the Ottawa Citizen. We'll be back with more right after this. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years. And it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit, but people I think know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob today and tomorrow. My apologies to everybody for perhaps waking you up a little too quickly this morning. But I'm passionate, and my next guest, incredibly passionate as well. He joins us each and every week here on the Rob Snow Show. Randall Denley, author and Ottawa Citizen columnist, joining us. Randall, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Derick.
Let's talk about your latest column, because I think it's it speaks to partly of what I was just discussing in the opening, and that's I'll just read the opening of your article. The magnitude and nature of the Freedom Convoy disruption in downtown Ottawa is drowning out the point the protesters hope to make, but that doesn't mean they don't have one. And I certainly agree, but I'm going to throw it over to you, of course, and tell us what you mean by that, Randall.
Well, there is a lot of literal noise coming out of that, and it really has distracted us. But the main point that they're trying to make is government has imposed too many restrictions on people in relation to the pandemic, and it's time to get rid of them. Now, that's a point that the Prime Minister described as being held by a small fringe minority and constitutes an unacceptable view. I guess he being the arbiter now of what's an acceptable view in this country. Mm-hmm. But, really, in some ways, I think the Freedom Convoy is pointing in the direction that we're going to go, because it isn't really a question of if we're going to eliminate pandemic restrictions. It's a question of when we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You're seeing more and more people who don't drive trucks saying now it's time to get rid of these things. And I find it very interesting this week, Derick. There was a poll from Angus Reid, and sure, it's a poll, but I think it's indicative.
Right
across the country, except in Atlantic Canada, majority of people think the right time to get rid of restrictions is now. Now is a good time. Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been more cautious, right, in this region, in particular in this province, than almost anywhere else in the world, right? If you compare us to anywhere else in the world, we've probably been the most cautious.
We have, and interesting piece in the National Post today by my colleague Tristan Hopper, a new study from Johns Hopkins University in the U.S., a group of economists looked at, I believe it was 34 other studies on the benefits of lockdowns, and they found that the additional lives saved from lockdowns was 0.2%. It's really, I think, been an ineffective overreaction from the get-go. That was my first instinct when, there's a health problem, we better lock down the world. We've never done that before. And I think, too many things have been done that don't make sense, but they're being done for the sake of doing them. And
I would say too, Randall, I would just say that we've never done it before because I don't think we've ever necessarily had the opportunity before, right? When we look at other pandemics in the past, we didn't have the type of communication that we have now.
No, we have the ability to do it now. We wouldn't have had the ability to do it in the past as decisively as we do these days, but it also was a novel thing. It's something we haven't tried. We don't know how it works. I don't think it's worked as well as we'd hoped. But the point I think that had sparked the truckers originally was the so-called mandate of, everybody has to be vaccinated if they're going to drive a truck across the border. Okay, but we've been doing this for nearly 2 years now without this.
Right. And I think the argument, though, is that the United States is doing that as well. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to implement. We did it first. They followed suit. We certainly don't have to implement it. If one does it, the other doesn't necessarily have to do it. Yeah, and truckers are really living a very isolated lifestyle, quite frankly, right? You're alone in your truck for 13 hours. I don't know how much opportunity you necessarily have to spread the virus, and it's already here. So I understand some of that, but I just don't. I just as far as the truckers themselves and the organizers, Randall, I just think that they've gone about it the wrong way, and quite frankly, the leadership of it is such that it's difficult to be taken seriously.
Yeah, but the point of my column is that as much as you might dislike some of the individuals, their tactics and all that, and I do too, that doesn't mean they aren't right on the fundamental point. If to get back to forcing truckers to vaccinate, the Americans announced it first. We put it in place first. What should have happened when the Americans announced it is the Canadian government should have said to the Americans, what is the problem we're trying to solve? I mean, you guys in the U.S. have a far higher COVID rate than we do. So a Canadian trucker coming into your country is not posing any demonstrable risk to you. So why are we going to do something that's going to make it more difficult for these two countries that have such a unified economy to get stuff back and forth across the border?
Do you think, Randall, it's one of the cases of, well, if you're doing it, we're going to do it too, right?
Well, I think for Liberals, it's a case of, it's a pandemic restriction. Let's do it.
Right.
The other one that jumps out at me, Derick, is this, the situation we have now with Canadians returning to the country. Oh, you better get a PCR test within 72 hours before you return. Mm-hmm. What is the point in that? We have a lot of Omicron here. Somebody comes in with it, well, they do. They're as likely to get it here as any place else.
Well, and Dr. Kieran Moore is fine.
2 tests.
Right.
Two tests, comes into the country. She's at the airport. Oh, here she is home. Oh, you've been randomly selected by the government to take another test. Okay, so that's 3 tests in 2 days.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what did it really all accomplish? And I think that's...
No, I agree with you because they're also saying, listen, if you have symptoms, don't even bother going out and getting a test. Just stay home and quarantine yourself.
Yes,
that
makes complete sense.
Well, yeah. So if you're returning from somewhere and you're not feeling sick, then, you don't have to quarantine. If you return from somewhere and you're feeling sick, well, then do what you have to do if you were here in the first place. Yeah. And quarantine yourself and protect others. And, I think the other thing that's getting lost here, in my opinion, as far as the protest, talking about lockdowns and so forth, well, that's a provincially mandated thing. From province to province, it's a very individual thing on what type of restrictions they're going to put in. That doesn't mean that they, shouldn't have an opinion on it. But, and I agree with you. The lockdowns, what has it served? All these small businesses are dying. And I'll say it again, and I know I sound repetitive, but those are the people that are most able to police themselves, right?
Yeah, we've choked off small businesses, and we've done and continue to do a lot of things that, in my opinion, are irrational. For example, how many people can you have in a public gathering place, a concert hall or a sports arena? Well, half the capacity, but no more than 500.
Yeah, that's insane.
So if I had a hall of 1,000 people, for classical music, I could half fill it.
Yeah.
If I have an NHL hockey rink, no, I could put 500 people in an 18,000-seat arena.
Yeah, and I'm no fan of Eugene Melnick, but for God's, my goodness, people, 500 people in that, it just doesn't make any sense at all. This guy is just bleeding money, and he has been for a long time for sure. But this is ridiculous. Why not even 25% capacity in a stadium that seats 18,500 people? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I think the other big thing that's moving this whole issue, Derick, is that, through the last month and a half, a lot of people have either had Omicron or know someone who's had Omicron. Mm-hmm. And they got a bit sick, didn't get sick at all. Some still got significantly sick, but most people now have some experience of it.
Oh yeah, I had it. I got it before Christmas, and I was quite ill. But it was severe flu-like symptoms, not unlike a flu I've had in the past. I double vaccinated. I'm now triple vaccinated. Plus, I've had COVID. Yeah, I agree. I've seen so many people now that have said that they've.
I don't think people fear it now the way they did, and that makes it tougher for government to keep imposing restrictions, because people say, well, what's the big deal? It is a big deal for some people.
Absolutely. Listen, people are still dying. I care about the fact that people are dying, but we have
numbers, though.
We have to figure out a way to live with it. Randall, real pleasure having you on. Always enjoy my time with you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care. That's Randall Denley, author and Ottawa Citizen columnist. Check out his latest column in the Ottawa Citizen, the trucker convoy. Disruptive, but the issue of COVID restrictions need a good airing. Thank you so much, Randall. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow and the Rob Snow Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. In Smiths Falls, -6. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says it was an absolute disgrace. Several Conservative MPs and one senator praised the anti-vaccine mandate protest in Ottawa's downtown. MPs and senators posed for a picture in front of one of the protest trucks yesterday, one of them tweeting, quote, "Great to see Canadians championing freedom on Parliament Hill." Now, as the complaints about the Ottawa police handling of the protest so far is growing, again this weekend, the protest will grow, including a convoy of tractors. Organizers tell Post Media will likely see 100 or so taking part on Saturday. Some of the participants coming from places in Eastern Ontario like St. Isidore, Winchester, and Kemptville. Ottawa police, though, say they are working hard on this situation, and this morning they released the fact they patrolled neighborhoods like Centretown, Sandy Hill, Glebe, and the Market and Lower Town, issuing tickets for traffic enforcement. 30 tickets were issued yesterday, more coming in relation to the ongoing demonstration. And Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health is due to give a pandemic briefing this afternoon. This will be the first from Dr. Kieran Moore since the province began relaxing some of the restrictions on places like restaurants on Monday. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob Snow. You may recall me from certain shows like Daytime Ottawa. 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 11 p.m. on Rogers TV. Just throwing in that plug. Got to get in there. My goodness. Okay, I've calmed down a bit. Apologies to people for some language at the beginning of the show. Good listeners, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm fired up. I'm a little upset today, but I'm calm now. You know why I'm calm? Because I have two calming guests joining me on the show right now. It's 9:34, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time for Ontario Politics This Week. I'm joined by Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist and former advisor to Dalton McGuinty. Welcome, Lindsay. How are you today?
Good night, Derick. I saw on Twitter you warned us you were fired up this morning.
I'm calm now, though. I promise, Lindsay. Well, we'll see. I shouldn't promise because things could go sideways. And Andrew Brander joining us, senior consultant with Crestview Strategy and former advisor to the Ford government. How are you this morning, Andrew?
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. For the viewers at home, I'm actually doing the namaste for them so they can see me calming, doing a little yoga pose here. Let's talk about what's happening here in Ottawa before we jump into some other things. I'll start with you, Andrew. Doug Ford has said if Jim Watson wants help with the Ottawa occupation, he just needs to call. So how do you figure Ford's handling of this thing in Ottawa? How do you figure he's done? And is he right to mostly stay out of it? And on the flip side, does the pearl clutching and hair pulling from opposition leaders resonate with anyone outside of Ottawa? What are your thoughts?
For people who I used to live at Slater and Bay. So I can very much sympathize with the frustration of people who live in the downtown core of Ottawa. I would say I do think the Premier is pretty right politically to kind of stay out of it until being asked. I don't think it does him any favors politically to get involved in this, given the rioting, given the protests, given what they're there for. I would also add on this, as I said, I used to live at Slater and Bay when I worked on the Hill. I spent 10 years in Ottawa. I was locked down as a staffer the day Corporal Cirillo was killed, but I remember after that, the whole security review that came of the precinct, what a total jurisdictional nightmare.
Yeah.
Everything is in that area.
It is.
Parliamentary Protective Services, you have RCMP, you have OPP, you have Ottawa Police, and on top of all that, the NCC is just a total nightmare to deal with all the time.
It really is, yeah.
Really, given the size of this protest, where it's been, it really is a total nightmare for anyone looking to sort of stick their nose into this. The less people involved in solving this and coming to a resolution, I think the quicker that's going to happen.
Interesting. Okay. Lindsay, I want to throw this over to you because, just listening to what Andrew said, Ford, waiting for a phone call. I mean, some of the reasons that the protesters are here is due to the restrictions that provincial governments have put on, not necessarily just the federal government. So why wouldn't the provincial government and Doug Ford get involved?
Well, first of all, there's two parts to this protest, right? So he should have gotten involved, saying some of the behaviors involved in this protest are completely wrong. And the other part of it is people are allowed to peacefully protest. There's protests every day in Ottawa. There's protests every day at Queen's Park, and that is just part of life on government precinct properties.
Right.
So he would, in terms of the offering, he does. Doug Ford has walked that line of, if people are anti-vax, they are out of his caucus. So I think he is sort of saying, if you want to, if you need something, let us know. But he is also, I don't think he's staying quiet because he completely agrees with them.
Right.
I actually think, one of the things that could happen is if he says, I totally disagree with you, and encourages them to come to Queen's Park, that isn't the worst thing for Doug Ford. 90% of Canadians are vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right? So
Agreed.
He has been on the side of that. And that is the one thing about needing to sort of separate the two streams of this. If you are destroying monuments, and along with Andrew, I was in lockdown that day of that shooting, I have family in the military, all of those things are extremely upsetting to the Canadians, and politicians that are supporting that should say this is not on, this is not okay. But for those that are protesting generally, that are anti-vax, well, it's not just that you're wrong. right? So I think it would just be a message about that to them, but they're allowed to peacefully protest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I just find the association. I mean, I just don't think, and I said it off the top, I don't think people have done their homework. They don't know who they're associating themselves with.
And a lot of it is just anger, right? Which is why it took such a bad turn, because it's just people that wanted to come and be angry. I mean, the federal government, doesn't matter if they lifted it, they can't get across the border. It's a U.S. regulation. Our one big lesson is everybody could use a civics class.
Yeah.
that was has been in Ottawa. But at the same time, people were also allowed to protest. This is just entirely different with the fact that we are blocking streets. They weren't on the lawn. They weren't on the, it was about the negative activity and the blocking traffic. And Doug Ford
and the noise. Right?
Yes, of course.
I mean, and the harassment, right?
Yeah.
I think it's worth pointing.
Sorry, go ahead, Brent. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say, I think it's also worth pointing out, the premier on his quiet residential street in Etobicoke has been dealing with these protesters on a weekly basis, right? This, I'm not saying the truckers. I'm saying the anti-vax people, right?
Yep.
So I think if they're going to find any sympathy with anyone, it's definitely going to be the premier. So, I agree with Lindsay, though. They need to be separated out into what they're there to achieve, and we need to sort of call that out for what it is.
Let's turn our attention quickly to Ontario politics, but mixed with a little federal politics here, Lindsay. And, obviously, Erin O'Toole is out as a leader of the Conservative Party. And, some people are obviously going to turn their attention to Doug Ford and whether he has any federal ambitions. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the family members themselves have said, they expect that Ford will be prime minister. This timing didn't work very well for Doug Ford.
No comment on the family members from me. Yeah. I'm just staying quiet.
The timing on this doesn't work very well for Doug Ford because he does, obviously, it's about 120 days, maybe, just under now, to our provincial election. Mm-hmm. And so this is not a time where he would be able to easily make a move without seeming to be very self-serving. So even though he may be very interested, and there's always been a lot of speculation about that, I think that he's sitting tight for now, and that is his message. But again, it would also depend on how long it will take to get to, how long until the Conservatives decide they actually want to have a leadership convention. So this could be interesting and something to watch. So we do know he, for example, had always been prior to the pandemic taking French lessons and doing things to position himself. And if you think about it, 4 years ago, Doug Ford wasn't the leader of the provincial Conservative Party right now. It was still Patrick Brown. So he does do things quickly, and the cycle has moved faster. So I think he'd still be seriously considering it. I think he has to wait and sort of see what happens with the timing of a leadership.
Andrew, I'll turn the same question over to you. And Lindsay mentioned Patrick Brown. Certainly his name will be thrown in there for the next, leadership. What are you hearing? What rumors are you hearing in your circles?
Yeah, I agree with Lindsay. So first thing on this, I think it's important to point out that both Premier Ford and Mayor Brown have said, that they're focused on the pandemic. Very carefully chosen words and statements, given their current offices that they hold. But Lindsay's right. Their decisions, both for Ford and Mayor Brown, are going to come down to timing. The rules that govern the leadership election process will, in large part, determine, quite frankly, their eligibility. In Ford's case, as Lindsay mentioned, election in June. In Patrick's case, election in the fall. So there's, so for someone like Patrick, he actually has a lot more runway to make this decision and a little bit more flexibility. So I think it's in large part going to come out to the rules that the Leadership Election Committee establishes. And, those in just as much as someone like the Premier or Mayor Brown might be keeping an eye on what's going on in Ottawa. The Leadership Selection Committee as well is going to have these considerations when they're establishing the rules. So there's other conservatives as well in the province, both at the municipal level and at the provincial level, who might be looking at this if we go beyond the executive leagoing
Right.
There's who knows how many cabinet ministers in Ontario are saying, was going to run again because there's no other opportunities, but this might be a big enough thing to entice someone, or there might be people you think who are recently out of their positions. You think of a Rod Phillips, for example. You think of a Randy Hillier, who might want to throw their name in the mix as well. So lots of provincial, municipal people who might be taking a look at this.
Don't frighten me with Randy Hillier's name. By God, Andrew. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow on Rogers TV and City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today and tomorrow. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in both today and tomorrow. I want to remind you, we have the Talk Pack Hour coming up at 10 o'clock. Don't call now. Call after 10 o'clock. Number is 613-750-1310. Couple of questions for you that's coming your way. Firstly, we're going to be asking if you've been impacted by the protest downtown. A lot of news reports, residents who are in distress because of the presence of the demonstration, want to get a handle on what it's been like for you. If you've been downtown, what have you seen? What have you heard? And secondly, as you know, Aaron O'Toole out as Conservative leader. Deputy Leader Candice Bergen in as interim party leader. So who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, in your opinion? Those are our two questions for you. 613-750-1310 after the 10 o'clock news. But we continue with Ontario politics this week with Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist and former advisor to Dalton McGuinty, and Andrew Brander, senior consultant with Crestview Strategy and former advisor to the Ford government. Lindsay, let's talk COVID here. So living with COVID seems to be the new direction for pandemic policy here in Canada. So the question, that we have is what political risks are associated with, with this conversation? For example, if Doug Ford starts to really putting his weight behind living with COVID as a political strategy, could that backfire on him?
So I think we have to. I read something that I think is the way that politicians should be framing this going forward, and would be the right way for Canadians.
Okay.
And particularly here in Ontario, with heading into the election. So if you are vaccinated, it is now an endemic. We are living, if you are vaccinated, we are now able to live with COVID. This is still a pandemic for those that are unvaccinated.
Right.
So actually, it would be fantastic, I think, for everybody, if we now are heading into an election with talking about living with COVID and having that mix of what does that look like for Ontarians to make a choice about what life actually is going to look like for the next 4 years. It's also, it's always better to be campaigning from a place of optimism. We will want, people will be a spring election, a little happier, positive ideas, things that we could be looking forward to. Pocketbook things because of the hit of the pandemic, and so it does make sense to be campaigning from more from a place of forward-looking than just sort of continued fear. So that, and there's pros and cons for that for both parties.
Right.
So that is that would be a good position for both of them. But I do think that is also the thing that, like, how do Ontarians turn the page on this, especially with case numbers still high, surgical backlogs, all of these things. There is going to be a management conversation about this, but now we do need to be looking about for those of us that are vaccinated in an endemic situation, how do we move forward? And that is more what this election should be shaping up to be. And quite frankly, that's the one I'm very interested in seeing, because we've had a lot of things that have just been put on hold, and we need to sort of think about what are those priorities with living in an endemic that is still affecting our healthcare system, that's affecting our schools, and having some of those conversations about forward planning that just is not coming from crisis mode.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We've got to get away from the fear, and we have to start having some positive conversations moving forward. Andrew, what do you think? And maybe not just Doug Ford. Let's look at Del Duca as well, right? He's been spending a lot of time using the pandemic in Ontario as evidence that Doug Ford has no moral authority to govern. Do you see this as being a big camp? Well, do you see this? This is probably the biggest campaign issue. There's no doubt in anyone's mind, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how quickly I think, and I could be proven totally wrong on this, but it's amazing how quickly I think people want to get back to normal, want to not be having conversations about COVID every day. And therefore, I think I'm optimistic that our next election campaign will be about the economy and some other issues that are sort of more pressing than the day-to-day. But I think, to Lindsay's point, the reason why you've seen a shift around the reporting numbers, for example, in terms of let's stop focusing on case count, let's start focusing on tangible things that are actually making a difference in people's lives,
right?
AKA ICU capacity and blah blah blah. Because this is what living with COVID looks like, and this is what it means, and these are the real results from that, not some kind of number that really isn't all that representative of very much. So
yeah, I think you're right, Andrew, because cases now, I think to most people is meaningless. Right?
Totally.
To so many people are getting it. It's inevitable. They're saying that we're all going to get it. So how many people are dying? How many people are in hospital? How many people are on ventilators? How many people are in ICU? Where did they get it? I mean, those are all questions that people have been asking, well, for a long time now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the more that we're able to focus on that, the more that it will actually, the more impact it will have on people in terms of being something that's more tangible to them, right? Like, it's the same thing when we talk about massive budget numbers that don't mean anything to anyone, right? Like, you have to put it in terms that people are willing to understand or able to comprehend. This is leading to 20 more ICU cases in our local hospital here in Brampton, which means if you need a ventilator, you're not going to get one because of this, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think the more we can put it in that kind of context, and the more we can make it about people's day-to-day decisions, the lives they make, the choices they make, then the more effective the management side of the pandemic is going to be in the long run.
Just got a couple of minutes here left, Lindsay. I just want to talk quickly. Let's say Doug Ford gets a minority in the next election. Let's pretend he's lost his majority. Is an NDP or a Liberal coalition like something that could be seriously in play here?
I don't believe so. And I mean, look, I think that at this point, and you'd see it even on the last day of the federal election, where Jagmeet would still not say who he would work with, that you're in this campaign to win it. So those are the conversations leaders don't want to speculate to, because if you're willing to not be the winner, then that's where you'll end up. But the thing that I think is important is looking at how government can function well without this, because there isn't. I really enjoyed our time in government and learned the most and thought we worked so well when we were in minority government, because you have to be strategic, you have to be efficient, you have to be able to work with people.
Yeah.
That was the message in this last election that Canadians want. And so I think there is a value in whoever is the opposition on the other side of June 2nd, that they think about what does it look like to help Ontario move forward without having to think about it always as, who's your dance partner, what's the deal, right? That it can be a case-by-case scenario depending on the policy, depending on the issue.
Wouldn't that be refreshing, Lindsay?
It was, but I will say one thing very quickly.
Okay.
Sometimes it was fantastic. Wasn't always fantastic when Andrea's wish list items were more about herself than the public.
Yeah.
So it was a great time. There were some things that you were like, that's just for you, Andrea.
Yeah, I hear you. Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist and former advisor to Dalton McGuinty, thank you so much for joining us. And Andrew Brander, senior consultant with Crestview Strategy and former advisor to the Ford government, thank you to you as well. Hey, coming up after the break, after the 10 o'clock news, Talk Back Hour, 613-750-1310. Our two questions. Have you been impacted by the protest downtown? We want to hear from you. What have you seen? What have you heard? Has it affected you in living or working downtown? And secondly, who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? We want to hear from you. 613-750-1310. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and 1310 News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7, in Smith Falls, -6, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Calling in the military might be one option being considered. Ottawa police grow increasingly frustrated with protesters who remain camped out in and around Parliament Hill. Here's City News reporter Laura Carney.
This demonstration now entering its 6th full day, and Ottawa Police Chief Peter Slowly has a message for protesters. There are consequences, and there will be more to come.
We are arresting, we are charging, we are investigating all bad actors, all criminals. Enforcement will continue. All options are on the table.
Slowly says residents have been the victims of intense noise, threatening behavior, vitriol, and hatred, and says police action alone may not be enough to end the demonstration.
We're looking at every single option, including military aid to civil power. There is a process, extremely well established, extremely well governed, and extremely rare. It is not a decision to be taken lightly.
Convoy organizers say they plan to remain in the capital for as long as it takes for governments right across the country to end all mandates associated with COVID-19. Ottawa police say they are preparing for more protesters to return to Parliament Hill this weekend, including a possible counter-protest. I'm Laura Carney.
And for example, police traffic officers have been patrolling several neighborhoods around the downtown core: Centertown, Sandy Hill, Glebe, Market, and Lowertown. They issued tickets by traffic enforcement yesterday. In fact, 30 tickets handed out in relation to the ongoing demonstration. City News Time, 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We may collect a couple of more centimeters of snow, but the bulk of the second wave will stay south of our area. We've already reached our high for the day as well. Say goodbye to the mild air. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about -9. Scattered flurries tonight, -18, will feel like -29. And for tomorrow, mainly cloudy, the high just -12. For today, already reached the high for the day. For the afternoon, -9.
And right now it's -7 in Ottawa. It's -6 in Smith Falls. Ontario's top doctor set to hold a media briefing early this afternoon on the pandemic, the first since the public health restrictions began to ease back on Monday. Dr. Kieran Moore's afternoon briefing comes after modeling from the province's expert pandemic advisors predicted COVID-19 cases would rise after that partial reopening. The Ontario Science Advisory Table said relaxing public health measures aimed at controlling the Omicron variant would increase the virus spread, but the experts couldn't say exactly by how much. City News Time, 10:03. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is once again voicing concern about Russia's continued military buildup around Ukraine. Stoltenberg says Russia is amassing troops in Belarus now, which also borders Ukraine.
Over the last days, we have seen a significant movement of Russian military forces into Belarus. This is the biggest Russian deployment there since the Cold War.
Now, Russian officials deny an invasion is planned. NATO has begun to reinforce the defenses of nearby member countries as a precaution. City News Time, 10:04. Rachel Holman and John Morris evened their record at the Olympics this morning. The mixed curling team did drop their opening match to Britain, but evened the record at 1-1 with a 7-6 win over Norway. Canada is the defending gold medalist in that sport. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
The Rob Snow Show continues, minus the Rob Snow. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa and Rogers TV, filling in for Rob Snow. It is the Talk Back Hour, and we continue to follow the two major stories in the news this morning. The ongoing demonstrations in Ottawa, which many are now calling an occupation, and the ousting of Aaron O'Toole as Conservative Party leader. Two questions for you this morning. You can answer one, you can answer both. Doesn't matter to us. Firstly, have you been impacted by the protest downtown? Certainly a lot of news reports of residents who are in distress because of the presence of this demonstration in our city, and we want to get a handle on what it's been like for you. If you've been downtown this week, what have you seen? What have you heard? Maybe you went down to support the protests. Maybe you work downtown. Maybe you live there. Maybe you were just curious and wanted to check it out. 613-750-1310. a special appeal to any callers who live downtown. We want an eyewitness report. How has this protest impacted you? Secondly, Aaron O'Toole is out. He's done. Stick a fork in him. By a vote of 73 to 45, the Conservative caucus chose to show Mr. O'Toole the door last night, naming Deputy Leader Candice Bergen an interim party leader ahead of an eventual leadership contest. By the way, this will be the third Conservative Party leadership race in the past 5 years. Party elected Andrew Scheer in 2017, Aaron O'Toole in 2020, and now it will choose a new leader sometime in 2022. That's according to what party president Rob Paterson told some of the cable TV news shows last night. So we want to know, who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, in your opinion? Again, 613-750-1310. The lines are filling up, so you better get in. Let's head over to Linda in Chelsea, who wants to talk about the protest. Linda, whereabouts are you? Are you downtown?
No, I'm waiting to get my shot.
I see. Whereabouts?
In Hull.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the protest?
Well, I think it is an occupation, and since I'm ex-military, I think that they should bring the army in and have tanks to push them out. I know that sounds extreme.
A little extreme. Yes, a little extreme, Linda. Tanks in downtown Ottawa would be a little... I mean, I think, certainly many people, myself included, something has to be done.
Yeah.
I'm not sure tanks are... I don't even know, quite frankly, Linda, how much negotiation has even been done. And I'm not suggesting they necessarily negotiate so that, we can appease the protesters and what they want to see. But certainly some kind of conversation should be happening.
Yes, and in regards to our next Prime Minister, our Premier, I like Pierre or Peter MacKay. I like him too.
Pierre Poilievre as leader of the Conservative Party, or Peter MacKay.
Like
okay,
yeah.
All right. We'll try to keep an eye on what people are suggesting, and maybe we can look at the numbers at the end of this. Thank you so much for calling, Linda. Really appreciate it. Let's head over to Dave, who wants to talk about the Conservative Party from Bayshore.
How you doing today, Derick?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
Very good. I like what the last lady said. The last lady that was just talking. I think the only way we're going to resolve this standoff, if that's what you want to call it, from downtown, I think we got to bring in the military, and whether they bring in tanks, I think the military will get these people away from downtown.
Okay, all right, I hear you. What about Dave? What about the leadership of the Conservative Party? Any ideas of who you'd like to see?
To tell you the truth, I don't really follow who's probably going to be running.
Okay.
But I think it would be nice to see somebody locally from Ottawa. Maybe get in.
All right.
And that would be good. I'd like to see somebody from Ottawa and somebody who's a really, really big believer in vaccine mandates, and somebody who's also a real big believer when it comes to. I like what Doug Ford says when he says, "I got to go with the doctor's opinion. We got to go with science." And I'd like to see somebody who believes in science and vaccines. And that says the only way we're going to get through this is if we get vaccinated, and there's no ifs and buts. That's the only way we're going to get through this. I'd like to see somebody who's really pro like that. Okay,
excellent. Dave, thanks very much for the call. Appreciate you calling in. All right, we got a few lines open. 613-750-1310. Couple of questions for you. First, have you been impacted by the protest downtown? Perhaps you live downtown. We've seen reports of residents in distress because of the presence of the demonstration. We want to get a handle on what it's been like for you. Have you even been downtown? Maybe you've gone downtown to support them. If you've gone downtown to show your support, we'd love to hear from you as well. Give us that eyewitness report of what it's been like. Perhaps you work downtown and haven't been able to get there. Perhaps you're a business owner downtown and you remained open. And, you can give us an idea of what it's been like for you. Second question is, of course, Aaron O'Toole is out. He's done. Conservative Party leader is out by a vote of 73 to 45. We're asking who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, in your opinion. Let's head over to Jim, who is in Perth, far away from the protest. Jim, how are things in Perth? I imagine much quieter than here in downtown Ottawa.
Yes, they are, Derick. But I think there's as much, interest here in Perth as far as how the convoy is being reacted to.
Yeah.
I had mentioned to David, and I won't prolong this because I know you'll have a lot, but sure. I had mentioned to David that I'm coming from this issue from maybe different than some of the drivers.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to get a degree from University of Guelph. I served on Perth Town Council for 2 sessions, and I trained as a pilot in the Air Force. So that's one side of the issue. The second side is I operated one of these gas trains as a broker for 15 years before I retired, and so I can look at this from both sides. My overall opinion here is that the Prime Minister and maybe a couple of councillors, I think, have overreacted. If the Prime Minister had have met with these people, to start off with, but his reaction, and I think it would be the same with anybody, with any group. If you castigate them right off the bat before they ever entered Ottawa, you've got their backs up a little bit.
I agree with you there. I said that off the top, Jim, that I do agree. And I think it goes even, beyond that, much before that, because I really think Justin Trudeau, immediately, like a long time ago, immediately to put this divide in the country by stating that anyone who didn't get a vaccine was basically the enemy. And then, quite frankly, to me, that's not leadership. Leadership, takes patience and understanding. It takes a good ear. It takes, listening. Because there are people that are scared. There are people that don't trust the government. There are people who question how quickly the vaccines came to be. You have to have an understanding of all this. I think the reason, Jim, that he hasn't spoken to or sat down with the organizers of the protest is because of who they've associated themselves with.
Well,
that's a difficult thing.
Derick, in the same like a lot of these truckers are Western Canada boys.
Yeah.
The beginnings of a lot of those fellows, and I know this for a fact. A lot of them are ex-military guys who, when they retired from the military, they went into the trucking business. A lot of them are farm boys. Now, we're talking about guys that are not hooligans. But if you start off, and it would be the same with anybody. You call them all kinds of names. I think McKinney referred to them as insurgents. Before they ever hit Ottawa. Well, I would have my back up in the air as well, because they're coming here basically with an idea not just of themselves. This is a freedom convoy.
Okay, Jim, hold on. Let me just say something quickly, Jim.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
And I respect what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. But what I would have, if I was part of the leadership of this group, what they should have done is they should have approached each person displaying a swastika, each person displaying the Confederate flag, each person associated with the far right or racist organization, each person pissing on the war memorial, dancing on the tomb of the berating locals, each person with the flag or a truck with the words F Trudeau to get out of here. To say, you know what, we don't need you. You are going to hurt our cause.
And you're bang right on. That sort of sickened me as well. But if I can just make one other comment.
Yeah, one more quick comment, Jim, and then I got to take a break. We've got our lines lighting up here.
Yeah. General Eyre, Wayne Eyre, and his predecessor, something that's always upset me. If you ever seen the process in the States as far as the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. you can't even get close to there. You sit in the back and you behave yourself, or else you'll wind up in jail. Why, in the location that our Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is placed, and knowing that there was a convoy coming, why wouldn't the military, and it would be a great symbol as far as Canada is concerned, to have a member of each one of the services standing guard.
Interesting, yeah.
You know, and I mean,
yeah, no, good point.
It's not cosmetic, but even from the standpoint of it being something that we highly respect.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's symbolism there, right, Jim?
Much respect into it when we leave it, unattended. And I mean, there's already been a tragedy there.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that there's a lot of blame to go around here for everybody.
Agreed 100%, Jim. I agree. Jim, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate you calling in. Listen, our lines are lighting up. We do have one line available, so please give us a call, 613-750-1310. This is the Talk Back Hour. We have a couple of questions. We want to hear about, how you've been impacted by the protest. Maybe you've gone down there. Eyewitness report. What was the protest like? How has it impacted you? Do you live downtown? Do you have a business downtown? And of course, Aaron O'Toole out as leader of the Conservative Party. Who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? 613-750-1310. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow on Rogers TV and City News.
Say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa and Rogers TV, filling in for Rob today and tomorrow. Our questions today are: have you been affected by the pandemic? By the protests downtown? Of course, having to do with the pandemic and vaccine mandates and so on and lockdowns. And, you don't have to live downtown or have a business downtown, just any opinion on the protest itself, the demonstration itself. We'd certainly love to hear from you. Maybe you have a business down there. Maybe you're trying to get somewhere downtown. Maybe you have an appointment. Give us a call, 613-750-1310. Our second question: who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, in your opinion? Of course, Aaron O'Toole being ousted yesterday by a vote of 73-45. You can email us as well. We do have an email. Let me read the email before we get to some calls, because we have our lines lighting up here. As a person who lives downtown to date, there have been no problems for me. I sleep well, no honking through the night. I have walked to the pharmacy, grocery store, and no issues. At this point, there are no trucks on Kent and no honking. If Trudeau had talked with the truckers and came to a solution, I do believe the truckers would have been gone by now. Trudeau just added fuel to the fire. So there's an email from someone, living pretty close to the situation. Surprised they haven't heard any honking, to be honest with you. I live in Vanier, and I mean, it hasn't disturbed me. It's very faint honking. I certainly have to, sort of turn off the TV and hear, and it's usually at night, sort of between that 9:30 to 11 p.m. in the evening. But we do have some calls, so let's get to some callers. We have Sarah from Russell who wants to talk about the protest. Sarah, welcome to the show. Sarah, you there? Hello, Sarah from Russell.
Hi, how are you?
There she is. I'm doing well. It's an up and down day for me, Sarah. I'll be honest with you. Came in a little cheesed off, but, I've calmed down a bit.
It's been a crazy 2 years, I think, for a lot of people.
No kidding.
Right? So, you know what? I'll start off by saying, Aaron O'Toole, great. He's gone. Let's move on. Let's find somebody else. I think Pierre Poilievre would be a great candidate. Do I think he's going to do it? I don't know.
I think he's the front runner. I think he's the front runner.
Absolutely, and I think he'd be a great candidate.
I think, I have different opinions on that, but this is your time, Sarah. Go ahead.
So, I'm a small business owner who has been 110% affected by this pandemic from the get-go.
Right.
Yes, we all have, and in some way, form, or another. But, as a small business owner, I can only speak for myself.
Right.
We have had the constant lockdowns. We have had the constant restrictions, the ups and downs of we're essential and non-essential. I own a spa.
Okay.
So, 1 minute we're allowed to do services, the next minute we're not allowed to do services. It's the ongoing lies of we're being assisted by the government. No, we're not. I have a massage therapist who never closed the entire pandemic because he's allowed to open because he's essential.
Right.
But then yet I can't be where I can meet my girls having their pedicures done and they're not in someone's face like a massage therapist.
Right.
It's stuff like that. And
I understand, Sarah. I agree with you. I've said from the beginning that small businesses like yourself can easily police themselves. It's,
100%.
right? You have a maximum amount of people that are allowed in the store. You look around, right? And you say, listen, sorry, there's only and you're appointment only, probably, right?
Absolutely. We have our doors closed. We are by appointment only. Everybody waits in the hallway. We screen them. They're temperature checked. They wash their hands. We have done everything since the beginning to comply with the rules from the government, but yet have not had any support from the government. My second point is, do I support the convoys? I do if you want to do it in a respectful manner. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I personally have gone downtown Ottawa.
Okay.
It is peaceful. There are people playing hockey on the street with their kids. There are people talking. The smiles I have seen on people's faces are amazing. It actually put tears to my eyes to see so many people with love on their faces. Yes, you're going to have those people that are going to be walking down the streets with inappropriate signs. The police should be enforcing those. They should be saying...
Well, what about the responsibility, Sarah, of the organizers?
Absolutely.
So, the organizers are the majority down there, okay? And I agree with you. There's a lot of peaceful people. I know some people that went down there to show their support, but my problem is, as the organizers, as the larger group who is saying we are peaceful, we are good Canadians, okay, but then you should be approaching the people with the swastikas and the Confederate flags and the F Trudeau stuff. That does not help your cause. Tell them they're not welcome.
And Jim made a good point, your last caller. He said, why didn't we have enforcement on the memorials? They knew they were coming. They knew this for months.
Excellent point.
Why are they not supporting, their people as well? This is their war memorial. Why don't they have soldiers standing up there saying, you know what, we're going to protect this? Because I can tell you what, if that was done, there would not been somebody peeing on a war memorial. There would not been protesters dancing on it. That is a sin. They should not be doing that.
It's a great point. Sarah, I appreciate your passion. I respect your opinion. Thank you so much for the call. Let's keep the calls coming. We have a line open, 613-750-1310. Let's go to Devin in Lanark Highlands, who wants to talk about the protest. Devin, what are your thoughts on this?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, cool. So I followed the protest before it came to Ottawa. We met halfway. We drove in. Super positive.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to everybody calling in saying, yeah, it's been awesome. I think that their message is a little blurred because I don't think it's a realistic goal that they have to remove all mandates because realistically, people are not ready to take off their masks.
And Devin, can I just talk about the mask thing for a moment? I get it. I don't want to wear a mask either. But honestly, going into a restaurant wearing your mask and walking to a table, which takes about 60 seconds, sitting down, being able to take off your mask, what's the problem? Walking into a grocery store and spending 20 minutes shopping for your damn groceries with a mask on, I mean, what's the problem? Going into a retail store for, again, 20, 30 minutes, and as soon as you get out, take off your mask. I don't want to wear it either. I get it. But why are we making such a big deal out of something so small? Let's just do it.
Because what people haven't realized is that this movement is bigger than that.
I understand that. Of course it's bigger than that. Look at the people involved.
I have three children who are all in school through this pandemic. I've followed the rules. We've done everything we had to do, and nothing has come of it. My daughter's daycare has closed because everybody has COVID.
Right.
And now, they aren't even warning parents that they have COVID.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Yeah, I don't understand.
Exactly. So, they said no to herd immunity, but here we are secretly doing herd immunity in all of the daycares.
Yeah, Devin, really...
I think that this movement has to be preventative for the next pandemic, because if we think this is the last pandemic, we're wrong.
Well, yeah, I'm not even sure it's going to be a pandemic, but I mean,
our education system.
Right, and we have to learn to live with it. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. Devin, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. We've got our lines lining up. We have one line available. 613-750-1310 is the number. We're going to take a quick break. After the news, we'll be back with the Talk Back Hour right here on the Rob Snow Show. I'm Derick Fage filling in right here on Rogers TV and City News.
in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. In Smiths Falls, it's -6. Here's what's making news this hour. Police face growing criticism of their handling of this convoy protest in the downtown. Several groups writing letters, including unions. Individuals have also begun demonstrating at police headquarters on Elgin over the past couple of days. The mayor and the head of the police board, that's Jim Watson and Diane Deans, have both praised the police handling so far. But some question why steps haven't been taken to move the protesters out. The province's chief medical officer, Dr. Kieran Moore, expected to provide a COVID update this afternoon. This is just 4 days into the latest provincial reopening phase 1. We're hearing there continues to be a drop in the number of people, though, in hospital and the ICU due to COVID. The number in hospital dropping by 142 from yesterday's number. In the ICU, it's down by 14. The province also, though, does say 75 more deaths have been blamed on the virus. Speculation over who will lead the Conservative Party includes what could be a very small field and a very short time to get a convention called and a new leader in place. Candace Bergen has taken over as the interim boss after the Tory caucus voted out Aaron O'Toole yesterday. Cormac McSweeney with the latest for you coming up at 11 o'clock. And curling fans may have been a little concerned after Game 1 of the mixed curling event at the Olympics as Ottawa's Rachel Holman and partner John Morris lost their first to Britain. They rebounded, though, their second match, a win over Norway. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Oh boy, the Rob Snow Show does continue. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in for Rob today and tomorrow. By the way, Daytime Ottawa airs at 2, 6, and 11. Had to throw that in there. We've got a couple of questions here on the Talk Back Hour. My favorite hour of the program, Rob's favorite hour of the program, David's favorite hour of the program, and yours. 613-750-1310. David's saying, I don't know if it's my favorite. No, he loves the calls. He loves the calls. Keep them coming because the lines are lighting up. We have a couple of questions for you. Just talking about the demonstrations downtown. The protest downtown. Have you been impacted by it? What are your thoughts overall on it? What have you seen? What have you heard? Have you been down there? Do you support? Do you not support? Give us a call. Again, our second question is, who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? We've heard from one person so far suggesting Pierre Poilievre and Peter MacKay. But if you have any other suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. But I'm going to go to the phones right away here. We've got Derick in Ottawa who wants to talk about the protest. Derick, good morning. Thanks for your call. What are your thoughts?
Hey, good morning, Derick. Well, I'll start off. I was at the protest.
Okay.
I took part. I wanted to see it for myself.
Yeah.
It was really peaceful. Everyone was smiling. Everyone having a great time. No violence. No one's faces were covered. There was no Antifa there. I didn't see the Confederate flag. However, the person that was there was obviously a plant. I mean, he was the only person there with his face covered, and he wasn't welcome there. But,
well, that's good. I mean, that's good to hear because that's what I've been asking. If those people shouldn't be welcome, and it should be made known to them that they're not welcome, because if you don't do something about it, then there's an association there. And quite frankly, Derick, I mean, just look at some of the organizers, and some of the things that they've had to say over the years. It's pretty frightening opinions.
Okay. Well, there was people. If you see video, you're just not seeing the video that they want you to see. There is people. If you look on TikTok, there is a video of people actually telling him to leave, and he's a plant. So, but that's not why I'm calling about that. Trudeau could end this. It's very easy. All he has to do, and I'm not against getting the vaccination. It should be a choice. My wife is fully vaccinated. I have 3 children. One of my oldest children decided to get vaccinated. So, I mean, the people who haven't got vaccinated at this point are probably not going to get vaccinated. So there might be 20% that, aren't vaccinated, but their spouses might be. So there's a larger majority of people who actually probably support those people for having a freedom of choice.
Yeah, I support a lot of what they're saying here. I honestly do. I just think you have to go about it in the right way. You have to make sure that the leadership of something like this is such that there's an understanding that your views have to be views that are not racist views. I mean, if you look at a guy like Pat King, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Derick, but he's a very worrisome individual who has some very disturbing opinions. And if you're going to put somebody like that in a leadership role for a demonstration, that concerns me, Derick.
I'm not part of any of the truck convoy. I'm there, like a lot of other people from Ottawa and other people from all over the country are not part of this truck convoy. We're there to show support for freedom. It's about freedom.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, Derick, that you're a peaceful protest. I'm actually just looking at some video right now of some of the protesters
there's everyone
shoveling away the war memorial.
That's the other thing. The city didn't plow the sidewalks on purpose. There's no...
the city can't get down there, Derick.
Well...
My God, dude.
No. Right on Wellington. That's the only where the protest is taking place. I think the snow happened just before the protest.
Yeah, but there had to be some preparation for it. I'm not sure that the first thing to mind is, hey, let's make sure we plow the sidewalks to make it easier for them. Derick, appreciate the call. I want to take a few more calls here because our lines are lighting up again. 613-750-1310. Chris from Brockville's been holding for quite some time. Chris, thanks for your patience. Sorry about that.
No problem. Good morning, Derick.
Good morning.
Morning. Protests should be for public awareness, not for disruption, number one. Okay?
Yeah.
And clearly it's crossed that line long ago. Number two, before it started, our government should have enforced what are the current regulations, including you register for a protest. Okay? They didn't follow those rules. They're not following the bylaw rules. Enforce those before they even enter the city. Why didn't they park all the trucks nicely out of the city where there can be porta potties set up by the organizers, garbage cleanup by the organizers?
Yeah,
and then
they have the money for it.
Well, they do. And then welcome into town them with signs walking in, making awareness for whatever cause they believe in, okay? That is the way you do a protest. Not driving trucks and stopping all the local traffic and disrupting everybody.
I can't even imagine what it's been like for people living downtown and the constant disruption to their lives. I mean... And I get it. I understand they're doing it because they feel like that's the only way we're going to be heard. But if you want support, it's an interesting way of getting support. That's for sure.
Yeah, if you want support, you do it properly. You don't do it in a disruptive manner like they clearly have done.
Yeah.
And our roads are designed for traffic flow and people, not for parking your big, huge trucks, not for creating barbecues in the middle of the street and playing hockey, and not for standing on overpasses. There have been people killed on overpasses by snow trucks because they come over the hump, okay? It is not designed for that. There are rules to follow. Yes, protest, but follow the regulation and rules.
Chris, do you have a dog with you there?
Yeah, I do. He's
okay. I was like, either that or you've got some serious gut issues that you need to see a specialist.
No, he's certainly agreeing with what I'm saying.
Okay. Yes, I see that. Chris, thanks very much for the call. Really appreciate it. Let's head over to Alex in Canada who wants to talk about the protest. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Hey, my friend. So now, no kidding, we don't trust the media anymore.
You don't trust the media anymore?
Well, I do unique thing. The liberal media clings on few individuals that do stupid things, but they totally disregard tens of thousands of law-abiding, middle-class Canadians that are done with this pandemic. This is why we don't trust the media anymore.
Alex, hold on. Who is the liberal media?
That's not cool. We have a criminal code last time I checked.
Alex, I'm asking you a question. Who is the liberal media that you're referring to?
I'm talking about like the Communist Broadcasting Corporation, CBC.
Well, that's one media outlet, Alex.
These people that.
Alex, sorry, I had to let you go there because it sounded like aliens were coming down from. Oh, okay, the line just dropped. Well, we were having trouble with the audio. Let's head over to Helen, who's living in Westboro. She wants to talk about the protest and the Conservative leadership. Helen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. First of all, I don't have dogs. I've got cats, and they don't have my tongue.
Okay. What do you think about the situation, the demonstration downtown?
Well, I agree with the premise of it.
Yes.
I agree with, like everybody's fed up with the pandemic. It's the pandemic that's affected everybody.
Of course.
The mandate, actually.
The vaccine mandate?
The whole thing, yes. The vaccine mandate.
So you're talking about, the mandate for vaccines for the truckers, for vaccines certificates to get into businesses, that kind of thing.
Randall Denley, who was on your show, had the best. I've been waiting for ages to hear this on the radio. Ages. It came out February 1st about the John Hopkins study.
Right.
Where the mandate is the lockdown. The lockdown has caused more problems than it's helped. 0.2%. Okay, that's how it's helped.
Yeah.
And the effect of it. So I hope that a lot of people would look at that. I would hope that Trudeau would look at it and then say, I've looked at this, and maybe it's time to end the mandate. He has a good reason for it, or maybe Candice Bergen will do that as her first role.
Well, maybe she'll propose that. I mean, a lot of these restrictions though are provincial, right, Helen? Where it's really a provincial jurisdiction that looks after most of these restrictions. So it goes beyond the feds.
If the feds do it for the people that work in the federal areas, as they've done, okay, they control that.
Right.
And by the way, Doug Ford did speak against the protest.
Yes, he did. He spoke briefly about it. Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew Brander, who spoke a little bit earlier, made a good point that, Doug Ford has put up with protests himself, right? And his neighbors have had to put up with protests. So he certainly, I think, can sympathize with the situation. It's probably not to the degree that we're seeing now. But yeah, no, you're right. Now, what about the Conservative Party leadership? Who do you think should take over?
Well, I'm of two minds. I would love Pierre Poilievre to take it. But I would also like to see Michelle Rempel, and I think that would be
interesting.
Yeah. I think that would be good.
My only issue with Pierre is, he's very intelligent. He's got talent. He's got experience. I just find he has these childish antics that he continues to use. I mean, he shows this, it displays this sort of immaturity every once in a while, in my opinion, by the way, not in everybody's, that just, I wonder, it just doesn't show leadership to me. There has to be a respect. I understand you're the opposition. I understand you don't agree, but there has to be, some type of respect for the other person, and he often doesn't show that respect. That's my opinion on Pierre.
Okay, let me just say something quickly.
Sure.
Unlike Justin Trudeau, who always shows maturity, as he did in the House of Commons with women.
Oh, hey, listen, I'm perfectly capable of talking about Justin's.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Failures as well.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan myself. You want to talk about leadership. I talked about this earlier on in the show. He divided the country immediately. He basically said it's us and them. Yeah. That's not leadership, right? Leadership is patience and understanding and listening and educating and allowing people to question things.
And just one other quick thing, the people that are talking about, bringing in the army.
Yeah.
Remember when, you probably do remember when Stephen Harper when they had the election in 2006 and the Liberals had that ad about guns in the streets that the Conservatives would bring.
I do recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Helen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the call. Hey, lines are lighting up again. Have one line available, 613-750-1310. We're going into the last portion of the Talkback Hour here on the Rob Snow Show. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
What an hour we're having here. My goodness, the talkback hour. It's been great. It's been respectful. Hearing everybody's opinions, we appreciate it. I mean, that's what this show is all about, right? Listening to opinions, giving you a voice. For those people that, the government owns the media, it's not true. It's not true. This isn't the talkback hour is the perfect example. You think if we were getting paid by the government, they would want some of the calls we get to this show? And by the way, as Rob said, I believe early in the week or the week before, where the heck's my check? If I'm getting paid by the government, by gosh, I want to check. All right, lots of callers here. Let's try to jump in. I mean, we're talking about two things: the protests and who you think should be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Let's head over to is it Shay in Canada? Shay?
Exactly, Chez, Derick.
Chez, how are you, Chez?
Yeah. Good. You and Rob are the best. I have to admit, I love calling to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but there are two things. Let's take the Aaron O'Toole thing first. Okay. It was time for him to go, okay? It was definitely time for him to go. And I'll tell you one other thing. The other two leaders, there has to be a leadership review on their part as well, too. And I'll explain why. Well,
okay.
Aaron O'Toole has been flip-flopping from day one.
I agree, 100%.
He's a smart guy. He's a lawyer. He's an honest, sincere guy. But you know what? When you go to me and Rob talked about this, when you go to a leadership debate and the moderator brings up the divisive Bill 21, and the three of them remain silent on it, more or less. All the states are guarding vote for Quebec, right? Let's face it, this is a vile and racist piece of legislation.
Absolutely.
and it institutionalizes racism. So what message are you sending to Canadians when you don't even confront that on national TV?
Sheds, it's political selfishness. That's what that's what it comes down to. It's political. Oh my God! If I say anything against it, the people in Quebec that support it will not. I won't get their vote. So what?
And then the two hypocrites, Singh and True, have the nerve to go and start, playing the racist card when institutionalized racism is the worst form of racism there could be, because it's going to change the public mindset, and that's where they all failed, all three of them. And you have to have a leadership review for the other two parties. You have to.
All right, Chez, I've got a lot of callers here, so let's get to who you think should take over for the Conservative Party.
Okay, it's time that Canada now has a woman running, steering the ship.
Yeah.
The Conservatives have some strong ladies in there. It's a question of if they want to run or not, and who's the best one. Candice Bergen, Michelle Randall. The lady, what's her last name? Her name is Rate. There's a number of them. I think that would be something that would really unite the country. Finally,
yeah, I agree.
I think that'd be the way to go. Honestly, and because these leaders have been sowing division and lack of unification.
It's been so frustrating. I can't tell you how frustrating. Ched, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It's just been so frustrating because politics has just changed into such a selfish endeavor.
And what people need now is leadership, okay? They need leadership.
Agreed.
And all voices have to be heard. And politics and protests and whatnot, it's all about negotiation. Not everyone's going to get everything that they want.
Of course.
But if you don't confront these people, in spite of, leaders are supposed to take a few hits.
Yeah. Chez, I gotta let you go. I'm gonna try to get to another call here. Let's head over to Cheryl from Ottawa. Cheryl from Ottawa West. Cheryl, what are your thoughts? Cheryl, you want to talk about the demonstration, the protest downtown?
Okay, well, my husband and I decided to hop in the truck last night and drive down and get a look for ourselves. So, first of all, every street has a clear lane. Every single one.
Excellent, okay.
We drove all around down there.
All right.
I didn't see any garbage. I certainly did not feel threatened.
Excellent.
Very peaceful, happy. We passed a truck. They were giving out water from the back. They had a full cases of water back there. My husband yelled over and said something about, do you have some whiskey to go with that? Or just, It was very nice, happy, and proud to be Canadian. That was a showing of freedom to me.
Cheryl, do you have any issues at all with some of the organizers, with some of the people who have put this together, with some of the some of the things that we have seen, such as swastikas and Confederate flags and berating local residents, dancing on the tomb of the unsung soldiers? I mean, I just think you need to distance yourself from those things if you want to be taken seriously.
Well, I have a 94-year-old friend whose husband was in the Navy, and she said desecrating that woman dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier, especially following all the riots that she's watched with all the statues being pulled down, spray painted, broken, dragged through the streets. She cannot believe at 94 that the media is calling that desecration. Now, that's her.
It still is desecration. It's not just the media saying it, it's the majority of the public.
Well, this is the woman who's, I don't know, I listened to her.
There's a lot of veterans, Cheryl, that have spoken out against it.
There was no malice. The woman it was silly, shouldn't have done it. She doesn't agree with her doing it, but she certainly doesn't call it desecration. So just put it out there.
I respect your opinion, Cheryl.
And I think that our PM could meet with the leaders. Now, the ones that I'm following are on Facebook, so it's a live feed. So they are totally against the swastikas, everything like that. I think there's something called Zoom that our Prime Minister uses all the time, so I don't understand why there couldn't be a live Zoom meeting and address what they're here for. I saw downtown at the police headquarters, it was on the news last night, a woman holding a sign that says, tell the terrorists to go home. that's okay, I guess. As long as you are not a trucker, you can do whatever you want, basically.
Well, I mean, come on. Holding a city hostage and holding up a sign, Cheryl, are two different things. Cheryl, I'm just going to take a couple of more calls. I do appreciate the call, though. Thanks very much. Let's head over to Rob in Alta Vista. Let's talk about Rob, you want to talk about the impact of the protest?
Yeah, I would like to, first of all, just mention what you're talking about with the lockup and the problem with people downtown and stuff like that. Yeah. What would happen if this was BLM or if it was an Aboriginal organization? I think people would be keeping their mouths shut. I don't think you would hear anything negative just simply because of the ideology.
Interesting. Well, and on the opposite side of that, Rob, people have been saying that if it was something like this, and you were completely locking down the downtown, and it was a BLM or an Indigenous protest, they would be dragged out of there.
I totally disagree.
It's happened.
Of that and the politics of that's impossible.
It's happened in this country. We've already seen it happen. Pierre Poilievre has spoken about it.
Justin Trudeau would be calling them deplorables? It wouldn't happen.
If it was a complete lockdown of the downtown core, would he be calling it deplorable? No, but would the police have gone in and actually removed them? It's a distinct possibility, Rob.
I don't
distinct
know about
possibility.
That. So basically, what you're implying is that this trucker protest has more power than would a BLM or a Aboriginal protest?
Well, I'm not certain. I think they're worried about inciting them. I mean, that's basically what the police are saying. It's basically what the city of Ottawa is saying. The mayor's saying, Rob, I'm going to let you go because I want to get one more call in before we go to break. Let's over to Linda in Orleans. Linda, you have the last word.
Hi. First of all, I want to say I'm triple vaccinated, and I absolutely disagree with some of the antics that they've used in the case of dancing on the unknown soldiers tomb, etc. Mm-hmm. However, if Justin Trudeau had come out and spoken with these people right off the bat, like most of the other, like a leader should, instead of calling them racist and misogynists, like he always does to people who disagree with him, a lot of this could have probably been prevented.
You know what, Linda? I do agree with you to a certain extent. I don't think he has approached this in the right manner. However, what I will say in his defense, and let me tell you, I don't defend Justin Trudeau very often. What I will say in his defense, when he looks at some of the leadership of this protest and sees where they are coming from and sees the type of things that, the type of opinions that they have shared in the past, how can he justify sitting down with them? That is the problem, Linda, I think, for him. Linda, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for all the calls. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow, don't forget, it's the Free-for-All Friday. Oh, my goodness, is it ever going to be a free-for-all? That I can probably guarantee. Of course, we'll have questions, but Free-for-All Friday means you can call in, talk about anything. I'll be back then. I'll be back after this break as well. This is Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. It's -6 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. More counter-protests will take place over the next couple of nights outside the Ottawa Police Headquarters on Elgin. Centertown resident Reese McGaw tells City News they're upset with the lack of action that police are taking on the trucker protest downtown. He provides one example on Elgin Street.
Going through the center of traffic is a gentleman with a giant sign wearing a thong, otherwise naked, screaming and yelling, walking down the middle of the street. I mean, there's no way that a dozen plus cops didn't see that, in the same 3 or 4 minutes that I saw the gentleman doing it. They don't care. They're just tolerating it.
McGaw says once you see a crime being committed and cops choosing not to intervene, you lose a bit of faith in them. Last night's protest was about 30 strong at the police headquarters on Elgin. He expects, though, tonight and tomorrow protests will grow in size. Now, Ottawa police say their traffic enforcement officers are issuing tickets in neighborhoods surrounding the downtown. 30 tickets have been issued in neighborhoods like Centertown, Sandy Hill, the Glebe, the Byward Market, and Lower Town. The service says 8 of the charges were for unnecessary horn honking, 4 for disobeying signs, 2 driving the wrong way down a one-way, 6 for speeding, plus others like running a stop sign and having improperly secured fuel cans. City News Time 11:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We may collect a couple of more centimeters of snow, but the bulk of the second wave will stay south of our area. We've already reached our high for the day as well. Say goodbye to the mild air. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about -9. Scattered flurries tonight, -18, will feel like -29. And for tomorrow, mainly cloudy, the high just -12. For today, I already reached the high for the day. For the afternoon, -9.
And it is feeling colder in the wind, but -7 degrees in Ottawa, -6 in Smiths Falls. The number of people in hospital and in ICU due to COVID continues to decline in Ontario. The number in hospital dropping by 142 from yesterday down to 2,797. The number in ICU is down by 14 to 541. The province, though, is also reporting 75 more deaths from that virus. Over 4,100 new cases of COVID reported in the province, actually just under that number. 289 of them are in Ottawa, 104 in Eastern Ontario, 58 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 34 in Renfrew. Now, the province's top doctor does have a briefing set for early this afternoon talking about COVID in Ontario. This comes a day after Sweden and Norway joined Denmark announcing the lifting of various COVID restrictions. In Sweden, though, 80% of the adult population is triple vaccinated. Well, who wants to become Conservative Party leader? That is the big question, with Aaron O'Toole voted out, Candice Bergen filling in temporarily. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The expulsion of O'Toole has highlighted divisions within the Conservative Party, and experts say this race could be a soul-searching moment. Do Conservatives look for a centrist, or do they turn to a populist politician like Donald Trump? Laurie Turnbull, political scientist at Dalhousie University, tells us some sitting MPs may take a stab at it, with the race expected to be short.
So this is good news for someone like Pierre Poilievre if he does want to make a real run at it. Even someone like Leslie Lewis has run before. She's got that experience.
MP Marilyn Gladue was also interested, but there are some outside of the caucus who may run, like former Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall, Peter MacKay, who lost to O'Toole 2 years ago, and possibly an Ontario cabinet minister. However, the rules of the race and the entrance fee may be a deterrent. In 2020, it cost $300,000 to enter, and only 4 candidates were able to pay up. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. This is Derick Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in for Rob today and tomorrow. Big thanks again to all of our listeners who called in during the talkback hour. Great conversation. Always appreciate your calls. Always appreciate you sharing your opinions. We're gonna continue to talk about the demonstration, about the protest, because Ottawa Police Chief slowly says there are foreign actors from the U.S. funding and participating on the grounds in the Ottawa protests. Of course, that you've got the GoFundMe campaign. Not sure is this something unusual? I don't know. But our next guest has the answers. Stephanie Carvin, security expert, associate professor of international relations at the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University, joins us. Stephanie, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Stephanie, I want to start off with this GoFundMe campaign. It's raised millions of dollars. I wonder, is this something unusual that you would see in a protest, a demonstration like this?
Well, it's not just unusual for a protest. It's unusual in Canada. By all accounts, this is the second highest ever GoFundMe for something in Canada. So I believe the first was the tragic hockey bus accident a few years ago, which raised, I think, over $14 million. This has raised $10 million. And has certainly, I think the GoFundMe has definitely injected a kind of energy into the protests themselves, right? I mean, it's just had legs. I mean, we start, a bunch of us, who kind of follow these movements started looking at this, a couple weeks ago, and it went, to 100,000 and then 200,000 and then 300,000 and $1 million. And it kept going and going. And we couldn't believe it. So yeah, no, it's exceptional, not just even because of the protest, but just the exceptional generally.
Yeah, and when you look at it too, obviously, with the protesters and the organizers saying, we're going to be here for a long time, we're going to stay. Well, they have comfort in knowing that they've raised $10 million. I know that they've withdrawn $1 million. Now, there's also I also hear that the GoFundMe page has been taken down.
It's been suspended.
Yeah. So do they still have legal access to the rest of that money? Do you know?
Well, so the actual organizers have to follow GoFundMe's terms and terms and conditions. Right? We'll have to click on the terms and condition box when we start these things. So I think there's probably a very nervous compliance officer at the GoFundMe headquarters right now, trying to make sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because you can't just use money for anything. You can't help me fundraise so I can commit crimes is not something that a company can really facilitate. So I think the key thing is that I think they're looking at the nature of the protest and who's doing it and why and what's happening and trying to figure out if this is something they can really give them money to without incurring responsibilities themselves.
I see. And what if, let's say they've decided that they've contravened the conditions of GoFundMe. Would they then return the money to the donors, or where would the money sit?
So I am seeing reports on Twitter that people are saying that GoFundMe has returned their donation. Now, I don't know if this is by accident or if they filled out something wrong, or there's all kinds of reasons why that's happening. So I've seen a few reports, but yeah, I mean, ultimately those transactions would be returned.
So let's do a hypothetical here as far as security go. Let's say 10% of the protest is motivated, by unsavory means. I've mentioned some of, the organizers and some of the history they have. First of all, how dangerous is that? And then, along those lines, can the 10% have enough influence on the protest to have it turn dangerous or violent?
Well, this is kind of interesting. As you say, the organizers themselves, you could argue, may have in and of themselves violated the terms and conditions due to some of the causes they've supported and some of the statements they themselves have made. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have freedom of speech or anything like that. And, I'm assuming in the first time they suspended the campaign, they took a hard look at who was organizing this, got assurances about how the money would be used, and then went forward. So the question is, have the organizers are the organizers saying one thing and then they can't prove it, like in paperwork, because that could be a big thing too. I'm not sure how great these guys are at, say, the paperwork. Or secondly, are they taking a look themselves and seeing things that, you're saying you're doing this, but this is what we're seeing. And as a result of that, we can't do this. I mean, just, it's a really interesting question. Because look, at the end of the day, we're a democracy, right? And this is, I vehemently disagree with these guys, but I understand that protest is disruptive, right?
Right.
You don't, if protest isn't disruptive, it's not very effective.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You do it for days and days and days on end, psychologically torturing a bunch of people who live downtown, many of whom are my students, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They're a lot of them are women, persons of color. They feel really scared to go outside. And this is going on day after day after day. Is that sticking with their terms and conditions? I just think they're having a hard look at this and maybe thinking twice. And if the organizers are saying they're doing one thing, is there evidence that they're doing another? And then, like I said, they have to comply with the rights of. They have to comply with Canadian laws too, right?
Right.
And if you have, one of the laws we have is over $10,000. You have to kind of report that money to banks and to the government and things like that. And it's in there's a lot of these anonymous large scale donations. So there may be an issue here that we have to think about.
Yeah, and you would imagine GoFundMe is going to require sort of a policy review, right? For GoFundMe and, let's call it the protest era, right?
Yeah, and I think that, they may have to sit down and think about how this plays out. My hope actually is that Parliament sits down and, maybe takes a look at this particular issue and says, okay, well, we have very strict election laws. Mm-hmm. Right. We have very, very strict election laws. And we, when it comes to financing and, there's been a lot of concern about clandestine foreign interference. Yeah. And, for that reason, we have these really important laws. So, but what happens when this isn't a political party, but a political movement? Right. The law is much less clear. Now, that being said, depending where this is being channeled or how it's being channeled to, these guys still have to report all this money to various authorities. And it's a very difficult thing to manage. $10,000 is representative of a lot of energy. But at the same time, it's a giant headache for these people. And if they don't have the right people in place to help them manage this money, this could be a definite headache for them going forward.
The other question that people are asking themselves is it legal in the, in the terms of, is a permit required to do a protest such as this on Parliament Hill?
So, like I said, I'm not an expert in that municipal law, so it would be hard for me to speak out of turn. Like I said, I would just go back to the idea that, protest is disruptive and you're allowed to disrupt, but, at a certain point, I think we're talking fine nuance here of disruption versus occupation versus psychological.
Yeah, because we're calling it all these different things, right? It's a protest, it's a demonstration, it's an occupation. It seems like it's turned into an occupation of the downtown. Yeah, and you obviously. Police have now said they've been reluctant to remove protesters because they don't want to, engage and initiate, violence because of it. And then the other question I have is, can the city even make sure a surge of protesters don't arrive this weekend as anticipated, right? Because hotels are saying, oh, yeah, they've rebooked. And the organizers are saying, yeah, oh, no, there's other people coming this weekend. This is going to continue on.
Yeah, and I think what we're actually seeing, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I say interesting and using quotation marks here, which you can't see on radio, but we're also seeing this transform into a much wider national movement. So we're seeing now there's been protests scheduled for downtown Toronto. So some of the people who perhaps came to Ottawa this weekend will now go to Toronto. Because it's easier. There's definitely a protest scheduled for Quebec City. There's a protest scheduled for, I've seen early reports on Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton. So, this is not going away. I think the major difference is rather than it being focused solely on Ottawa, it may be just spreading throughout the country. So we may see smaller protests throughout the country, but this could raise other concerns about how we go forward. And already Ottawa had to brought in so many people from different police forces. Will those police forces then have to go back to help their own communities if this does become a more of a widespread movement?
And, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some people are even saying it's up to $1 million a day now. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you sharing your perspective with us.
Hey, Hey, no worries. Good luck, everyone out there.
Thank you. That's Stephanie Carvin, security expert and associate professor of international relations at the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University. We're going to take a quick break. We got lots more coming up here on the Rob Snow Show. This is Derick Fage filling in right here on Rogers TV and City News.
The Rob.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
That is correct. The Rob Snow Show returns right here on Rogers TV and City News. This is Derick Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV. I'm filling in for Rob today and tomorrow. And, I have friends that have businesses in the downtown core. I have friends that live downtown, but just specifically on the business side of things, friends that finally Monday came around and the restrictions have lessened, and small businesses can begin to reopen at capacity limits, and then we suddenly have virtually another lockdown in the downtown core, and they are unable to open their business, and then they continue to suffer more. You probably have heard that Ontario Green Party leader Mike Schriener has called for an immediate provincial support for businesses closed due to the downtown Ottawa protests. And we are joined by Mike on the show right now. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Derick. It's a pleasure to be on today.
It's always a pleasure to have you here on the show, Mike. And, Mike, obviously you're thinking that, these people have suffered enough, like so many of us, Mike. Let's talk about, what actually do you think could be done and should be done?
Well, the tragic irony, Derick, is that this trucker convoy is creating a lockdown for small businesses in the downtown part of Ottawa. And you know what? It's just unacceptable, everything that they've been through. I've been meeting with small business owners across the province, organizations supporting small businesses. Spent a fair amount of time this week meeting with, the Chinatown BIA, the Ottawa Board of Trade, and other business groups in the city, calling for more support in general for small businesses across the province, but specifically for downtown Ottawa businesses, barely hanging on by a thread because of the COVID restrictions, finally able to open, and now they can't open because of this trucker convoy protest.
Yeah, and Mike, on another side of things, I just wonder what you feel about the lessening of restrictions. A lot of people are saying enough is enough. These small businesses have suffered. And let's talk about it in a broader sense. Regardless, we'll get back to downtown specifically, but in a broader sense, is it time that we just open up, or do you agree with this cautious reopening by the Ford government?
Yeah, I support reopening. I think we need to do it in a way that follows what the numbers are telling us, and specifically healthcare capacity. I mean, we know that our hospital capacity is strained. It was strained and under pressure, Derick, prior to COVID, and COVID has really pushed it to the limit. And so we need to make sure that we open things in a way that doesn't overwhelm hospital capacity. But I think, most Ontarians, and especially small business owners, are tired and frustrated. I think we all are, and we want to see a reopening of the economy. And at the same time, small business owners, particularly those who are been shut down the most, so I'm thinking like restaurants and gyms and others, they still need support. A lot of those businesses, on average, $190,000 in debt. Many of them, even as we reopen, won't be at full capacity yet, and will still be facing, revenue reductions. And they're going to need some support from the Ontario government. I was pushing the Ford government to announce another round of the Ontario Business Support Grant. I was happy that they did, but they need to expedite getting the money out to businesses faster. I can tell you, as a longtime small business owner myself, cash flow is everything, and if you don't have the revenue coming in, you still have those fixed expenses for rent and hydro and other things. And also just making sure the program works better and smoother. I can't tell you how many small businesses who just didn't get funding and deserved funding, or just found the whole application process overly onerous. And so let's have a streamlined process. Let's have a call center that can help businesses who are struggling to get through the process. And let's make sure the eligibility criteria is designed so that the businesses who need the help can get the help. And I know that costs money, and I know people are saying, hey, government doesn't have an unlimited supply of money. And yeah, I hear that. But I can also say that, we're going to fill up those government coffers faster if we have small businesses alive to help fuel the economic recovery post-pandemic.
Mike, you mentioned the criteria, which has been, a huge complaint for so many small businesses, depending on, your revenues loss. And then, of course, there's some businesses that were relatively new, of course, right, opening up. And so they don't meet that criteria. What do you think we could do better as far as the criteria goes for helping small businesses?
Yeah, I think we need to be looking at revenue loss, and we need to have some flexibility of when that revenue loss took place. And let me just give you a couple quick examples. So I have a business in my community here in Guelph. They were shut down. They ran a charity fundraiser to provide some extra support for healthcare workers that was wildly successful, and that was counted as business revenue. As the owner's going, oh my God, I'm penalized for running a charity auction through my business to support healthcare workers. Another case, many cases of businesses that were not shut down, but supply businesses that were shut down. And so they took significant revenue hits, but were told, oh, you're not eligible miserable because your business wasn't shut down. And just a quick example of that is, a number of restaurants in particular, they source from local farmers or local food distribution companies, and those companies literally lost all their customers and had nowhere else to go, but yet technically weren't shut down. So there's numerous examples like that in businesses that fell through the cracks, and we need a program that can work for those businesses as well, because many of them, if they haven't already gone out of business, are barely hanging on.
Yeah, and I think the difficult thing, Mike, is how do we put pressure on the government in order to implement some of these things, because small businesses are just feeling lost. I mean, they feel like they're not being heard, they're not at the table, they're not being invited to the table. You see, the larger businesses that are, making, record profits, having the ear of the provincial government. And the small businesses don't have an ear whatsoever. How can we help small businesses get the message across that this is a dire situation?
Yeah, I can tell you, Derick, it was so frustrating when big box stores were able to be open and small businesses were closed. I mean, how fair is that? It just was a tragedy. And so I think one of the things that I've been calling for, and it quite frankly came an idea that came from an Ottawa area business who said, you know what, in the same way that, you have a science advisory table and you have public health officials advising government, why don't we set up an advisory table just of small businesses? It's clear that the big businesses have access to the Premier's office and had the Premier's ear when it came to, bringing in policies and, public health restrictions and things like that. But small businesses didn't have an avenue to the Premier's office. So why not set up a small business roundtable, advisory table, just like we have a science advisory table that can, provide direct information to the Premier, to the Minister of Finance, so when they're making these decisions, they take into account the voices of small businesses across the province. And that's an idea that came from an Ottawa business, and I've been promoting it ever since it was brought to my attention.
And, at the end of the day, what's going to help small businesses is lifting all of the restrictions completely, right? That's quite frankly, that's going to be the end solution. Mike, really appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much for the time today.
Yeah, take care, Derick. You have a good day. Bye for now.
Thanks, you too. That is Mike Schriener, leader of the Ontario Green Party. Coming up after the break, it is The World with Elliot Tepper. Always a pleasure having Elliot on the show. It's his weekly segment coming up right here on Rogers TV and City News. You're listening to The Rob Snow Show.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's -7, and in Smiths Falls, -6. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa police are facing growing criticism of their handling of the convoy protests in the downtown area. Several groups, including unions, have written letters, and individuals have begun demonstrating at the police headquarters on Elgin. Mayor Jim Watson and the head of the police board, Diane Deans, have both praised the police handling, but some are questioning why steps haven't been taken to move the protesters out. The leaders and organizers of the trucker protest are expected to hold a press conference later today. Stay with City News for more details. After Aaron O'Toole was voted out as leader of the federal Conservative Party yesterday by his own MPs, rumors are swirling around who will take his place. Candice Bergen has taken over on an interim basis, but many in the Conservative circles think it's a sure bet MP Pierre Poilievre will enter the race. And Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health is due to give a pandemic briefing this afternoon. It will be the first from Dr. Kieran Morris since some public health restrictions were eased on Monday. There continues to be a drop in the number of people in hospital and in the ICU with COVID-19. The number in hospital is sitting at 2,797. The number in the ICUs are down to 541. The province also says there's been an additional 75 deaths attributed to the virus. And Canada remains atop the 8-team standings in the final round of the CONCACAF qualifying with a 2-0 win over El Salvador. Come the end of March, the top 3 countries will represent North and Central America and the Caribbean in Qatar at the FIFA World Cup. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today and tomorrow. I am Derick Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in for Rob. And thanks for joining us on Rogers TV and, of course, here on City News. It is now time, my friends, for the world with Elliot Tepper, of course, Carleton University International Affairs Professor. Elliot, I always have to say that with enthusiasm because I still think we need some grand theme song for you when you come in. How are you, Elliot?
I'm fine. Good morning, Derick. Nice
Good morning.
to hear your voice.
It's nice, always nice to talk to you. Well, let's move ourselves away, thankfully, from what's happening here in the city because we've been talking about it for the last 6 days, and talking about some very important developments that are happening with the Ukraine. What is the latest from the Ukraine?
Well, I suppose the fact that local matters have knocked Ukraine off the headlines, not on the front pages, is itself a kind of news. So what's the latest is that, on the one hand, not a lot seems to be happening, and on the other hand, a lot is happening. We have a situation of troop buildups really continuing and also military hardware continuing. It is a very serious situation, even though at the moment it seems as if it's some kind of stasis. So what's happening is this. The Western Alliance, the NATO alliance, has shown itself to be increasingly united. If the goal of Putin was to push NATO back, actually NATO is gaining strength in terms of showing some unity outside of Ukraine. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. On the other side, the pressure on Ukraine by Russia is increasing. We should keep in mind, we're talking about will there be an invasion. Russia invaded in 2014, took Crimea, and has basically detached 2 provinces on the eastern side of Ukraine already. And the red flag issue, will Russia create a pretense for going in, is that, and the storyline that's being built up is, Ukraine might really try to regain those 2 breakaway provinces or whatever districts, whatever you want to call them, or even Crimea. So that would trigger something by Russia. So on the one side, Russia is increasing its pressure because it's also added, didn't get picked up a whole lot. Moldova has a border there as well. Now there's Russian troops and serious hardware basically surrounding Ukraine.
So what kind of staying power does this have? Is this going to be drawn out, do you think? Is there any historical context we can draw upon from this?
Yes. We're going to be talking about the Olympics, I hope, a bit later in this show. But these two are related, because one story that came out was that Xi Jinping actually made a plea to Russia: don't step on our glory, by invading. Don't invade while we are holding the Olympics. That story has been denied. But meanwhile, we'll talk about this. Mr. Putin is in fact going to Beijing for talks. Here's my hope. In terms of historic precedent, there's two, one very positive, one very negative. And I even hate to bring up the negative one, but the positive one is that after the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, which was, the closest the world has come to a nuclear war since the end of the Second World War, that ended by some face-saving, I'll move my missiles if you move your missiles.
Right.
And that's a package that's already on the table right now, which the U.S. is offering as an off-ramp, and Russia hasn't accepted it. Mm-hmm. And then a very good treaty came out for controlling nuclear proliferation and explosions. So the downside, if you want the dark precedent, and it's not impossible, I even hate to raise this, but the lead up to the First World War, just before 1914, was a phony war. There was a lot of movements. Nobody expected anything bad to happen.
Yeah.
Neither side really wanted a big war, but we got the big war, the war to end all wars. Things happen. You can tumble into these things, and that, of course, is a scary precedent.
Elliot, what's at stake for Putin? What's his end game here?
The best thing I've done so far is explore with every major real Russia expert that I can find, and everybody says the same thing. Nobody understands what Putin is really up to. Nobody will predict what Putin really will do, and I think we have to accept that. But we do have a situation with guesses. He's trying to build up his nationalist credentials at home. It worked brilliantly when he had problems at home and he attacked Crimea. His popularity really spiked.
Right.
It's a big distraction from the troubles he has at home over COVID. The economy's not doing well. There's other actions going on. He's been crushing his opposition. Big pushback against autocracy all across Russia, and he's jailed Navalny over that. And the thousands upon thousands of people in the streets shouting Putin is a thief, that seems to have been put down. So what's in it for him is this is a grand distraction. But now what? What's he going to do? And that's a concern, because as Joe Biden has said, well, he's got to do something, doesn't he?
When I look at this, I always find, Canada, from our perspective, it's very difficult, because I think we feel we're so small compared to some of these larger countries when issues like this arise. So, what is Canada's role here?
Yes, Canada's role is twofold. One is we are big supporters of NATO. We have announced we're going to extend our training mission, our tripwire mission, really, in Latvia, which is part of a broader NATO commitment to the region. This should be sharply distinguished from what we're doing on the ground inside Ukraine. There are two NATO allies on the ground in Ukraine. That's Canada and the United Kingdom actually have boots on the ground, but not as part of a NATO exercise. So on the one hand, taking an active part with NATO to beef up the NATO presence there, which is really an don't move across your borders, Russia. Don't attack. Germany's part of that, all across that Baltic region. But on the ground, Canada is doing something. Let's put it this way: the criticism, why aren't we providing lethal aid? Well, we might still, but
right.
The big ticket item here, the heavy lifting on lethal weapons is going to be the U.S. They just put another 90 tons worth in, Javelin anti-tank missiles and so forth. We might do something, but what we are doing is training Ukrainians to cause pain to Russia if they do cross the border. And one thing Putin does not want is to have a lot of body bags coming home from a potential invasion. And I think that's been an overlooked contribution by Canada.
You mentioned you wanted to talk about the Olympics, so let's turn our attention to the Olympics here. Many say that China needs these games to be a big success. Why is it so important for them?
There's lots to talk about when we come to the Olympics. The importance to Xi Jinping is that he's put his prestige on the line. He said, we are going to make these a success. And then along came the Omicron, we're going to make it a success, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, is what this has evolved into. So his prestige is on the line. That means the party's prestige is on the line. There's been a commentary about, well, why is this different from 2008? And when they hosted the Summer Olympics, one of the key differences here that's being pointed out is that was viewed widely as a coming out party for a China that we all thought more highly of at the time.
Right.
Xi Jinping had not engaged in his wolf warrior diplomacy and his truculence and his, he hadn't seized Hong Kong at that point and threatened Taiwan and the way that Taiwan is being threatened now, and and Xinjiang, of course. So people have overlooked Tibet, and here it was a big coming out party. See, we are announcing our presence as a great power on the stage. This time, he's saying, we're a great power, we're going to do this our way, and this is great for at home, just as in this case.
Yeah. It's gone from that welcoming party, right, back in 2008 for, the new Western allies to now we don't care about Western allies. We now want to show, home of, what we're proud of and what we're made of.
This is going to be a splendid, a safe, streamlined, splendid Olympics. That's its current motto. Yeah, so we can do this, and we're going to show the whole world we can do this, and we're going to make it a success. But we have to keep in mind that it's something I've been emphasizing repeatedly. This is one element, but only one element. So, Canada's not sending diplomatic. What if the big diplomatic presence isn't there? Henri of Luxembourg, by the way, has arrived as the first foreign leader.
Right.
But, it might take a little luster off, and he certainly does want these to be a success. But his bigger picture here is it's just one of many building blocks toward what looks to be an autumn gathering of the 20th Party Congress, where at the 19th Party Congress last year, he was enshrined as the core leader, and his Xi Jinping thought is in the Constitution. He wants now to be basically enshrined as leader for life in the fall. So he needs these to be a success, but it's only one part of a much broader picture. His anti-corruption campaign, I can get away with it in Hong Kong. Nobody will mess with the party. Peng Shui will disappear. Nobody will mess with the party, and therefore with me. I'm the core leader of a core country that's going to be the world's dominant power by 2049. So it's just one building block among many toward that important goal for him.
Elliot, does Xi Jinping, does he care at all about, diplomats not showing up, politicians not showing up? Is there any concern at all?
Yes, it might take a bit of luster off, although, in fact, the UN Secretary General is going to be there, the head of WHO is going to be there. All the neighboring states are sending very high-level delegations where China already has a lot of sway. The symbolism of it is important, and they want it to be a success. The fact that we're not sending our people there, I don't think bothers him very much at all.
I wonder, is, on the other side of it, is, the UN and the WHO, are they sending the wrong message by going?
Well, you can argue this. Macron, I think, is going as well. There's a lot of leaders are going. These are the genocide Olympics, according to, this is the label being put on accurately by people, particularly Uyghur activists and Tibetan spokespersons. So these Olympics are being held under the shadow of everything that Xi Jinping is doing domestically that the world has reason to abhor. So it's a very mixed picture here. the possibility that something could have been done about that has passed.
Right.
We needed to move those Olympics if we were serious about it, but that didn't happen. Now we're in a situation where we wish our athletes, there all the best. You don't want to deprive these young people of their major chance at Olympic glory, but on the other hand, it does glorify at the same time a regime that's been voted by the Canadian Parliament, among others, around the world as committers of genocide.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance trying to keep in mind, as you said, those athletes who have put in so many hours and dedicated so much and sacrificed so much. It's easier for us to say just pull out, and then where does that leave the athletes? All right, Elliot, we're going to continue on this topic. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Elliot Tepper with The World with Elliot Tepper right after this. This is the Rob Snow Show right here on Rogers TV and City News.
When it came to opening the business, because I was so young, there was a lot that I didn't know about management, financial management, management of people, all around management, I think is the word that I always come back to. I think that I always had a passion, and I knew that I wanted to create a space for people to get their hair done, but I had no idea, even having studied business management, what it really took to open a business as well as sustain a successful business. So in 2014, I was actually working with Angela Sutcliffe. She was my business coach at the time, and she was like, what's your niche? Like, what separates you from other salons? And when we started to really dig, it was the curls. It was the fact that we work with all curl types: curly, kinky, wavy, coily, which is how we identify our curl types. And then you have straight hair as well, of course. But more than 70% of the world has some sort of curl pattern to their hair. And we just realized that was not being addressed. It wasn't something we learned about in school. So I went to the States and I traveled all over to kind of gain the information that I have now to be able to share it with our clients and as well as with other stylists. So in March, when it came, I thought it was gonna last, a week, 2 weeks, through, I think it started off at 2 weeks. And I was like, cool, I have 2 weeks to just relax, that's fine. So I was actually in a position where I was not happy, so to say, but I was a little bit happy, to be honest, just because of what I was experiencing personally. Now, when that extension started to happen, it was not a great feeling. It was very uncomfortable not knowing how I was going to support myself financially. So I'm so excited about the Academy. It's something that I started, and I launched it during the pandemic. So I've been teaching for a number of years. I've been educating for a number of years. I educated at Algonquin. I've educated at Versailles Hair Academy. And I've also educated in my own space, in this space and my old space up on Green Bank. And so it was just a continuum of what I've been doing for these years. When we have a client in our chair, it's not just about making your hair look great. It's about how do you go home and take what we've just taught you and emulate that. So now, with a world where people want to, quote unquote, be diverse and inclusive, what does that really look like in a salon setting? And for me, it looks like being able to invite any curl type, any hair type, really, because I can take care of straight hair types just as well as, I can take care of curls. And we cater to all curl types regardless of what you look like on the outside. We got you.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today and tomorrow. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV. Filling in for Rob. We're going to continue with our conversation with Elliot Tepper. Of course, it is The World with Elliot Tepper each and every Thursday. And we're going to continue on this topic of the Olympics, of course, just around the corner. And Elliot, Putin and Xi Jinping will have a meeting, did have a meeting. Like, where does that stand at the moment?
I think, thank you, Derick. This is really, I think, something we have to keep an eye on, because it's very easy to keep an eye on, downhill skiers and things. But when we talk about the Olympics, what we're seeing right now is that an extraordinary meeting is being held between the leader of Russia and the leader of China. Neither one likes to talk to people face to face these days. Mr. Putin is very, very cautious about COVID, and Xi Jinping hasn't met anybody in person apparently like in 2 years, any major leader. So what we're going to have is a visit, just because it's the Olympics, by the leader of Russia. Mr. Putin is going to, however, have a bilateral with Xi Jinping this Friday.
Okay.
And they've announced, and this is probably the most important thing to come out of the Olympics, other than the fact, will it succeed or will it not succeed? Will COVID derail it or what? But beyond that, and by the way, we talked about what's in it for Xi Jinping. These Olympics are being held in a part of China that's called the Rust Belt. So they're developing a part of China as part of the Olympics.
Right.
A nice sidebar. But in this case, the fact that the two leaders are meeting and we have some idea what they're going to talk about. It isn't just a solidarity. I support you, you support me. These two leaders, these two countries have grown much closer in recent times. Russia has now, I think China is now the leading importer of Russian oil and gas, for example, very important to the finances. But this meeting can help cement a relationship. It'll always be cautious between the two sides because they're competing powers in some ways. But it's going to be a way for them to talk about, basically, if Putin decides to attack and invade or does anything that leads to global sanctions against Russia that could really bite, China's offering to help get around those.
Yeah.
Financial mechanisms, quote, that would offset the negative impact of unilateral sanctions are one of the many items, but very important item on their agenda.
Elliot, so what is the effect then on the rest of the world with this relationship becoming, and as you said, it's becoming closer. I mean, they're still going to be wary of each other, but what is the impact of a closer relationship going to be on the rest of the world?
Well, it's potentially a realignment of the world because this is an assertion by the two leaders that they have, there's a lot of different things here. One is that the U.S. is no longer going to be the world hegemon. They're going to move into any spaces that are left, and they're going to create those spaces geopolitically so that they have a joint interest in weakening America and the American-led alliance, which we, of course, are part of in the world. They are therefore going to help set the rules for what goes on in the future. They're going to push back against Western influence, including us. The other thing is that they also are offering an alternative model. Do you really want to develop your country? Well, why are you messing around with this messy democracy stuff? We're showing you a superior model of how to get things done.
Right.
That's part of why the Olympics need to go well. But they also are clearly trying to cautiously work together to reshape the geopolitical future.
And what you say is quite fascinating because it really is. It really is a way to get things done. I mean, it does work. It's not the right way, I think, in most people's opinions around the world, but there's certainly something to be said for it. And it is concerned. So what's at stake then for Canada and China relationships? Because, it's been a rocky road the past couple of years. We're not really necessarily going to, send our leadership there in order to show our support for our athletes. We'll be doing that from home. So what's at stake here for Canada-China relationship?
Well, in terms of autocracy as a form of governance that's superior, it's always been true that benign dictatorship might be, preferable to any other form of government, except for two things. How do you keep it benign? How do you get rid of it when it isn't benign?
Yeah, exactly.
So we have Xi Jinping assuming the mantle of heaven. He's got to continue to deliver for his own people. That's part of what we're doing. In terms of Canada and China, we are at an inflection point right now. We have a situation with our two Michaels having, we've helped shape world opinion. We played a leadership role in shaping world opinion to bring into focus the negative side of China over the last, that 1,000 days they were held, 1,000 days plus. The global image of China everywhere has plummeted, and we played a role in that. And China doesn't appreciate that. But now the two Michaels are home, now what? And we have, I think, a moment in time, and the Olympics play into it in a very minor way, in that we've said, okay, we're not sending our senior people there. We really don't send our senior people there anyway. But we have a situation where we have not yet announced an Indo-Pacific strategy. That is, we don't have, as other countries have done, what are we going to do about an emergent China, basically? We have not made an official announcement that I've heard of, I may be wrong on this, on Huawei. Are they going to be allowed into the 5G or not? Our partners in the Five Eyes Alliance have all said we are not going to let Huawei be part of our infrastructure, our key infrastructure. Even though we got the two Michaels back, that announcement hasn't been made. Apparently, and again, I may have missed it, we have a vacancy still in the ambassadorship. What kind of person are we going to send this time to represent Canada in Beijing? And will it be a professional diplomat? Will it be an influential politician? Will it be an influential businessman? Will that signal where we want the relationship to go? So we are at an inflection point in terms of Canada-China relations.
Elliot, what's holding up the Huawei decision?
I think indecision about how to proceed. And I think, to me, of all the things I've mentioned, the Indo-Pacific strategy, well, maybe we haven't announced it because it isn't clear what the U.S. wants to do. And until the U.S. makes its position clear, we have to wait. Well, maybe there's a reason on the embassy, appointing a diplomat. But on Huawei, the absence of a decision on Huawei, which would seem to be a no-brainer once the two Michaels are home, it does raise serious questions about what does the Liberal government feel about China? And I, how can I put this? Any leader of the country, our country, any country, has to worry about, among other things, a few things: the domestic security situation that would be involved, but also the domestic economy. We've got China is about to emerge as the world's largest economy. How does everybody handle that under Xi Jinping? And China, Canada has to deal with that kind of China. If jobs are on the line in Oshawa, what are you going to do? Say, no, we don't. We're going to fire those people. What about our exports of grains and so forth? So the economic dimension of how everybody has to deal with this, with the emerging China, is on the agenda. So you have Australia handling a one-way, tiny Lithuania. Boy, we should talk about that some. Tiny Lithuania.
This program is brought to you by